They're just boys. Morsels, we have all the power, don't you know that?
Megan Fox was a sex symbol in an era that turned against the sex symbol. Rising to superstardom after 2007's Transformers, Fox embodied the feminine ideals of the 2000s and early 2010s through her arresting beauty, svelte figure, and unfiltered badass persona.
Easy, warrior goddess. I'm just a little savage scrap drone.
And I'm your worst nightmare.
Looking back, Fox was strikingly self-aware, even a little meta, about her sex symbolness. She intentionally channeled Bombshell's past, played characters who dissected the sex symbol myth, and actively called out the semi-absurdity of the way Hollywood and the media treated her.
I think a lot of guys are kind of obsessed with her.
I don't know why. Those were always the questions. And I don't know, how are you supposed to answer a question like that, you know?
In response to her honesty and humor, she was vilified and diminished as a human being, and chastised for expressing anything other than meek gratitude for the attention she received. In the wake of the Me Too movement, our culture at large has given Fox a second look, as cringeworthy past interviews and thought pieces showed little concern with her discomfort with being consistently treated purely as a sexual object from adolescence on.
She's 15, so you can't sit her at the bar and she can't have a drink in her hand. So his solution to that problem was to then have me dancing underneath a waterfall getting soaking wet.
Articles like "We owe Megan Fox a serious apology" grapple with a kind of collective shock over how Fox's concerns were so wholly dismissed when she bravely spoke out over a decade ago.
That's sort of a microcosm of how Bay's mind works.
Well, that's really a microcosm of how all our minds works, but some...
Here's our take on Megan Fox, a modern-day deconstruction of a sex symbol and how she reflects our views of female sexuality back at us.
I knew I was smart, I knew that I was funny, and then all of a sudden, I was none of those things. I was supposed to just be a sexy girl.
If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified about all our new videos. This video is the first installment in our new Screen Icons series. And speaking of trying new things, we want to tell you about Bright Cellars, a monthly wine club that matches you with wine you'll love. Bright Cellars wine education cards will also help you learn more about the wines in your box, like the flavor profile and what to pair it with. So, are you ready to find your new favorite wine? Click the link in the description below, brightcellars.com/thetake, to get 50% off your first box today.
Feel my heart, Jonas.
The sex symbol identity defined Megan Fox's persona from the start of her fame, both in extensive press coverage and in her on-screen roles, which framed her as an embodiment of pure sex appeal.
A goddess walked among us, and you went to first base with her.
Fox was typecast to a degree that a certain formula developed for a Megan Fox role. A typical Megan Fox character is sexy, no matter whether she plays a demon, mechanic, or a shop assistant.
I don't think she's wearing underwear.
Why are you looking?
In plenty of other stories, characters are played by extremely attractive actors or actresses, but are still treated within the story world like they're not especially hot. But from Fox's role as a bikini-clad extra in Bad Boys 2 as a teenager, to appearances where she played herself,
Megan, you were worth every penny.
sex appeal is written into her characters.
I am an escort.
It's a plot point and a key factor in how other characters respond to her.
Double pump?
It squirts the fuel in so you can go faster.
Oh. I like to go faster.
Even when she plays talented journalist April O'Neil in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, her master plans for defeating the bad guys revolve around her sexuality. Most iconically in Transformers, Fox frequently embodies the cool girl, the male fantasy of a hot girl who loves stereotypically male interests.
You've got a high-rise double-pump carburetor. That's pretty impressive, Sam.
The Fox cool girl has the hallmarks of what's seen as a traditionally male emotional makeup. She's casual about sexuality.
I will sleep with one of you tonight if you can just decide who.
emotionally detached and not looking for a relationship,
I actually like being a loner.
unself-conscious about what she eats, and doesn't have a lot of female friends.
I think you're my first girlfriend.
Even when she's not exactly a cool girl, a Fox character is still sexually liberated and used to embody the sexual fantasies of both male and female characters.
That's the actress Sophie Mays. Last night, she told me she'd let me have sex with her if she won the Best Actress award.
She's been repeatedly cast in roles as bisexual.
I go both ways.
And though Fox says she is bisexual, often these parts don't explore bisexuality in earnestness, but mainly present it as another element of her hotness.
I go nuts for big boobs. I'm a real melon felon.
Oh, trust me, I remember.
I think he's having a seizure.
A Fox character is strong.
Can you shoot?
Can you?
A little mean, and kind of a badass.
What are you doing here?
In New Girl, Megan Fox's character Reagan is set up to be an extra confident, sexually liberated antithesis to Jess's awkward, dorky personality.
She's hot, and she's cool, and she's bisexual.
And seeing the two in frame together accentuates how different these two are in the feminine ideals they represent. Jess is portrayed as adorably innocent, emotionally nurturing, and sexually chaste, with hyper-feminine interests like knitting and teaching children.
I break for birds. I rock a lot of polka dots. I have touched glitter in the last 24 hours. I spend my entire day talking to children.
Reagan is boldly confident, emotionally distant, confident in her sexuality, with more traditionally masculine interests and behaviors.
You know what happens now.
I'm not hugging you.
New Girl has fun exploring both of these feminine ideals, and both women are accepted by the story's central friend group. But in the end, Reagan is more or less an obstacle on the way to the happy final union of the central will they or won't they couple Nick and Jess.
Nick, you have been in love with this girl from the moment you opened the door and you first laid eyes on her. I have never seen you look at anyone else.
Though Fox has been cast as the romantic lead in movies like the Transformers franchise, many of her major supporting roles have been as the alternative love interest, the girl a male character doesn't end up with because she embodies the allure of just sex rather than a deeper emotional connection. That's when she's not a shallow sex object or scheming to get a man.
I get what I want, and this winter break, I want Jordan.
This ties into our culture's long-standing Madonna whore complex, where women can either be seen as deserving of love and respect or sexually appealing. Fox is even used as part of the definition for the Madonna whore paradigm on Ask Men. Quote, "The whore identity is pretty self-explanatory. Think Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction, Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct, Megan Fox in, well, anything."
But it's not technically prostitution because I don't have to sleep with them.
Oh, well, that's good.
But I always do.
Perhaps most saliently, the typical Fox role is knowing and self-aware, adding layers of self-consciousness, irony, or commentary to her sex symbolness. Roles like Reagan in New Girl arguably make Fox into a postmodern version of the sex symbol, dissecting how each element of her personality adds up to our collective idea of what hotness is.
You're beautiful and you're smart. And you're mean, and you have the mind of an electrician, which is so confusingly hot.
Yet using Fox to convey this conversation about sexuality doesn't always add up to that much depth for her characters. In many of her roles, the audience is invited to see her as an object because, as the script tells us, that's what she's there for.
I searched you for darn good, didn't I?
Wouldn't you?
Whether they treat her with envy or objectification, other characters' awkwardness with the Fox character mirror a society that's fundamentally uncomfortable with overt female sexuality.
You've not won any Oscars then?
No.
Because I would definitely vote for you for Best Supporting Dress.
And this can be seen most prominently in the way that, throughout the peak of her rise in the late 2000s and early 2010s, media questions fixated only on her sexiness.
I said, what specifically are you thinking? And he wrote back, Megan Fox hot. 3 words.
aggressively took her words out of context.
I would make jokes, and then they would be headlines as though I was like very serious, proclaiming something, and it would be scandalous.
And wrote articles attacking her personality. Rolling Stone described her as Hollywood's hottest starlet and simultaneously a violent-tempered, insecure control freak. In 2008, she was crowned the world's sexiest woman by FHM's reader poll. While Hortense Smith wrote in Jezebel, women don't hate Megan Fox. They hate the Megan Fox archetype. Porn star poses, slow-motion boob shots, and references to lesbianism and bisexuality as kinks.
And then we hooked up.
Yeah, that's true too.
In the same article, though, Smith admitted almost apologetically, "I'm actually starting to like Megan Fox quite a bit because Fox was, through her wacky interviews, attempting, in a way, to take down the very thing she represents from the inside, constantly using any platform given to her to remind us all that she's not exactly what the press makes her out to be."
I think all women, unfortunately, have some deep-seated insecurities because of how we're raised in society, and it's hard having so much focus put on you all the time. It's hard to maintain that sort of confidence.
Sexual icons have been a key part of cinema since its inception, and Jean Harlow embodied the blonde bombshell from the 30s on. But the term sex symbol is perhaps most strongly associated with Marilyn Monroe and the post-World War II era.
I wanna be loved by you, just you.
The Monroe-esque blonde bombshell sex symbol, which might overlap with the dumb blonde or the sex kitten, typically has a childlike naivete and a classic hourglass physique well showcased by her costumes.
Look how she moves. That's just like Jell-O on springs.
And this model still informs today's ideas of what is considered sexy. But iterations of the sex symbol have changed over the decades, embodying different values and eras. Alongside the blonde bombshell was a brunette bombshell, embodied most distinctly by Elizabeth Taylor or Sophia Loren, who often played a strong, savvy woman.
I do not intend to join that long list of queens who have quivered happily at being summoned by Lord Antony.
And embodied an ideal of glamour. Meanwhile, we can also trace the evolution of a badass bombshell, often a hyper-sexy femme fatale like Ava Gardner in The Killers or Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct, or a smart, strong sex symbol like Princess Leia or the Bride from Kill Bill. Megan Fox's version of the sex symbol was an amalgamation of these strands. She incorporated the ditzy naivete of the Marilyn.
I just think it's so awful how we're still exploiting animals, which is why I won't wear fur or leather or wear makeup.
The dark-haired glamour of the Liz Taylor, and the devil-may-care badassery of the Ava Gardner.
I'll drive you shoot.
From her rise, it was striking that Megan Fox had cultivated this identity. A 2009 New York Times article was titled "The Self-Manufacture of Megan Fox." And Esquire's Stephen March wrote, "Self-awareness is her most attractive feature. Even her notorious propensity for saying shocking things that the press delighted in quoting out of context had an intentionality to it."
Isn't that my job? I'm a professional pot stirrer.
And Fox wore a tattoo of Monroe on her arm.
Is this somebody that you were fond of? I guess so.
Well, I better be.
From the start, though, she expressed ambivalence about Monroe as a role model.
She's not someone that I would ever want to emulate, I would say, but I think she's iconic.
And eventually removed the tattoo, citing concerns about following in Monroe's footsteps of losing control and meeting a tragic end. She told Esquire she preferred to emulate Ava Gardner, who had power. She was abroad. She got what she wanted and said what she needed. This story of the tattoo mirrors Fox's broader relationship to her sex symbol identity. She was highly conscious and aware of constructing it as a career move, and matter-of-fact about her place in the Hollywood machine.
Women are objectified, especially women in the entertainment industry, because we're packaged and sold as sex.
But she was also clearly uncomfortable as her sex symbolness took on a life of its own and became an excuse to treat her without humanity or respect.
When we were shooting it, Amanda and I were making jokes that that was going to be the entire trailer. It was just going to be 2 minutes of us making out.
It was only half the trailer.
Being a sex symbol can take a toll. It comes with pressures not to age and to compete with a never-ending supply of younger, slimmer actresses to play sexy roles.
The shoe's gonna drop at some point, and then what? What am I valued for? I'm valued for this thing, which is a farce.
Fox has said she felt constant insecurity. Quote, "I didn't look perfect. I was too fat, I was too thin, I was stupid, I was offensive, I was a waste of space. And she's revealed she's had a, quote, psychological breakdown due to the pressure.
I had, I think, a genuine psychological breakdown, probably, where I wanted just nothing to do. I didn't want to be seen.
As Smith wrote for Jezebel as this was happening in 2009, there are only two roads for sex symbols in America. They can transition into serious actress mode a la Angelina Jolie, or they can spiral out of control like Lindsay Lohan or Marilyn Monroe. A striking recurring theme from Fox's many interviews from that era is that she repeatedly mentions wanting to cultivate her skills and become a good actress. Yet these admirable intentions were mostly ignored or ridiculed. After she opened up about Michael Bay directing her on the Transformers to just be sexy, anonymous crew members even posted an open letter describing her as dumb as a rock and trailer trash, and suggesting she should be a porn star.
I just am looking at that girl and I want to give her a hug.
To quote Smith in 2009 again, often we end up posting stories on how we shouldn't kick the fallen ones when they're down, but I've realized that perhaps we should also consider not kicking the Megan Foxes of the world on their way up. Instead, we should root for them to subvert the roles they are positioned to fill and to find a way to break out of the boxes that Hollywood always tends to place women in.
So the chances of the heroine being blonde are statistically greater, and so then you want a visual opposite to portray the evil girl. And I am that opposite, I guess.
I expected to get on. That's what was always happening, and I figured was going to continue to happen.
While Fox has clarified that she was never preyed on in a sexual manner on set, she felt she was over-sexualized ever since her on-screen debut at the age of 15.
Brianna, I really should get back to work.
Is it important?
She was also photographed without her consent and told Variety she felt overexposed and even hunted. She recently described Hollywood as a ruthlessly misogynistic industry and expressed gratitude for those who were supporting her. However, she hasn't always felt supported by the feminist movement.
Even though I consider myself a feminist, I feel like feminists don't want me to be a part of their group.
According to Megan, the world wasn't ready to hear her stories when she spoke out about her time on Transformers.
I was sort of out in front of the Me Too movement before the Me Too movement happened, speaking out and saying, you know, hey, these things are happening to me and they're not okay. And everyone was like, oh, you, we don't care.
And it wasn't just men who seemed uninterested in what she had to say about sexism in Hollywood, but also women who leveled some of the worst vitriol at her, like the supposedly feminist site Zelda Lily that called her an ungrateful bitch. When the Me Too movement blew up, Fox chose not to participate, saying, I just didn't think based on how I had been received by people and by feminists that I would be a sympathetic victim. And even after Me Too took off, Fox didn't necessarily see big changes in how she was treated right away.
There was no sort of respect that had come from the Me Too movement and this whole idea of like we should respect women and not focus so much on how they look.
Fox was not alone in the vitriol she received, mainly for being a pretty famous young woman in the 2000s and early to mid 2010s. Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton, and Janet Jackson, among others, faced hostile and abusive media coverage with a pronounced slut-shaming aspect to it. At the center of this culture, Megan Fox was calling it out before mainstream society was ready to listen.
I have friends who are actresses who, if they go to work one day and they show up on set and they don't have a smile on their face, then they're tagged a bitch, and that is really unfortunate.
The shifting conversation around Fox reveals how much has changed in a few short years. It's impossible to deny that we're seeing a sea of change in how most deem it acceptable to publicly treat and talk about women. Margot Robbie, arguably the ascendant sex symbol of the mid to late 2010s, managed to leverage that status into prestigious award nominations, a starring role in a franchise, and her own production company.
Welcome to Lucky Chap Entertainment. I'm Margot.
And Fox herself, at 34, notably past the age when she worried her career as a pinup could be over, she's at last being treated as what she always aspired to be, a bona fide actress. MJ Bassett, the director of her most recent film, Rogue, told Refinery29, I wanted to make Megan credible, rather than this sex object that she's so frequently used for by male filmmakers.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with being sexy. It's just the problem that that part was so loud that it muted out
the rest of who I was.
It's time to listen to what Megan Fox has to say and to give every actress the opportunity to be treated as more than just sexy.
You know, I tell it like it is.
This is The Take on your favorite movies, shows, and culture.
Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us.
Please subscribe and never miss a take.
Thanks again to Bright Cellars for sponsoring today's video. Sponsors like Bright Cellars support our channel in launching even more series like Screen Icons. I'm also really excited to tell you about Bright Cellars because they can help introduce you to a new wine you'll love. All you have to do is fill out a free, easy, short quiz with questions like how adventurous you are with new food and drink and what your favorite kind of chocolate is. From there, Bright Cellars will match you with 6 new wines specifically for your taste. It's risk-free. If you don't like a bottle, Bright Cellars will add a bonus bottle to your next box. So click the link in the description below, brightcellars.com/thetake, to get 50% off your first box today.